from createinspain, and today I am using Shortcut Slot 5 Pro, although you could use different software for this and I'm sure get a very similar result. And I am talking about origin points and registration marks. Now the reason for this is because there is a definite trend at the moment for people to want to colour in their designs. Not to print them and cut them, but to colour them in manually, whether it's watercolours or alcohol markers, whatever. Now, if you have a cutting machine that runs with Shortcut Slot, there are ways that you can draw your image with the software on your machine, and then you can cut it out later with your machine. But in order to do that, you need to have certain things in place. And what I wanted to do was explain the difference between the effect of putting a registration mark on and the effect of using an origin point and using WYSIWYG, all those sorts of things, effects that they will have on the end result. So I have a design here. And as you can see, I have a border around it. Now, if I zoom in on this so you can see it more clearly, it will be better, I think. There we go. Now, hopefully you can see that I have purple lines in here, which are my draw lines, and then around the outside of that, I have a 1mm shadow offset, and then I have this box around it. Now, the reason for the box is that this is actually my bounding box. This is a copy, if you like, of my bounding box. If I were to completely ungroup this, in a second, let's select it and ungroup. And I remove this box out of the way. If I click on this design, which again is grouped with the drawing lines inside, because I use purple to indicate to myself that it's a drawing line, that it's a pen line, that it's not a score line or anything like that. So if I actually click on this and go to my position and size tab, I can see the actual size, which is 12.086 by 7.458. And if I look at this one, this is exactly the same size, because what I did was I took this size and made a rectangle. So now, if I line these two up, there we go. My origin point would be that bottom left corner. Now, in most cases, this is probably not going to be the method that I want to use if I plan on drawing my image and cutting it out later. It can be done, but you have to be careful, because when you set an origin point, that basically tells the machine that that is the bottom right hand corner of your image, and that's where the outermost line starts off. Okay. But if you have interior lines and you set that as an origin point and then you don't cut those cut lines, it's going to move your interior lines to that bottom right hand corner, and then when you do the cut, they're not going to line up. So that would be rather awkward. Now you can get around that by grouping the entire lot, then going to page and clicking on the bottom right hand corner, and then setting things to WYSIWYG. So what you see is what you get, and as long as you're cutting out the same design and you don't move the design from that corner, everything will be in the correct place. So you could, for example, turn off the other lines and just do your draw lines, and then come back at whatever time you liked to do the rest of it. But you would have to get your blade put in that bottom right hand corner. So you would need to draw this outer line here. You don't have to draw your cut line, which is your offset, but you'd have to draw the outer line, and you would have to put it in the bottom right hand corner, because if you don't, you're probably going to come unstuck. If you do want to do it that way, the easiest thing to do is just to select the entire design. Don't switch off your cut line around here, just don't put the blade in. So if you do that, it won't actually cut it, but everything is grouped together. So wherever you decide, or whenever you decide to do that particular image and you want to do the cut line, as long as you place the blade on that bottom right hand corner and you don't ungroup this, it will put the cut line in the correct place, because that's where it thinks it is, and it will have drawn the draw lines where they're supposed to be, because the whole thing is done in one go and you didn't switch off those cut lines. If you switch off or hide those cut lines, you can be in a great deal of difficulty, because it will tend to move your design to the bottom right hand corner. Now, if you don't have any offset on your outer line here, then you should be fine. But if you have an offset on it, it will cause problems. So that's one way of being able to draw your design, colour it in at your leisure, and then put the cut around it on the outside. And sometimes you want to do that because sometimes, well, it's more convenient to keep a design on a sheet. Now you might think, why would you want to do that rather than print it in the first place? Because you could just print the outer lines and colour it in regardless. And yes, you can, up until a point. There's a couple of occasions where you can't put paper through a printer. Maybe you've done this and you want to put it on a scrap of paper. It's big enough for your design, but it's not big enough to go through your printer. Or maybe like me, sometimes you want to use watercolour paper, and sometimes that's just too heavy to go through a printer, depending on the printer that you have. So that would be a reason for wanting to do that. So the other option for doing this is to actually put registration marks in. Now I'm going to go back to my view, and where are we? There we go. And go to fit to window. Okay, so I'm zooming out again. So if I want to put registration marks on, normally that means I have to print them, doesn't it? Well, not necessarily. Okay, let me show you what I mean. If we go into the cutter settings and you look at the settings here, around here you have the details of your registration marks. Now I can't change the mark type. The mark size I haven't changed. The thickness I did. I think it was 0.25 and I've changed it to 0.2. Now here's the interesting bit. You've got mark inset from a page bounds. So if you have that selected, if you want to do it on a full page, you can do that. But the inset from the page boundary is 0.64 centimetres. Now remember that figure. So I'm going to cancel this. Cancel that because I don't want to cut it out yet. So if I go here to my document settings, I can show registration marks. And here they are, they're showing up because I've got them set so that they're going to be in the corners of the page. No matter what designs I've got here, where they are, how big they are, how small they are, my registration marks are going to be there. Now, we know the size of my page, which is A4, 21.0 by 29.7. So if I make a rectangle and I give it those sizes, so let's select it, go to the size, 21.0 and click off of that one and go into there and go 29.7. This gives me an A4 piece of paper which fits in precisely onto my worksheet, okay? Now if I then go to effects, or if I go to path, I can do it on a path. I can go to offset path, inset the offset, and if I put in 0.64 and click OK, there we go. When you look at this, it's now 19.720 by 28.420, and I want to make this a brighter colour, so I'm going to go for a normal colour, make it bright red. Okay, and I'll make it a little bit thicker so you can see it better. So if I now take this and I put it centre to page, the corners of this are exactly where my registration marks would be. So if you put a pen in your holder and you draw this line as well as you draw whatever you want to draw in there, and you save the document, you must remember to save the document. You can do your drawing lines, you can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about whether you can see your cut lines or not at the time. And you can draw this boundary, and all you need to know is that for your registration marks, this is number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. Now that's for the silver bullet. If your machine does its registration marks in a slightly different way, then obviously that would be different for you. But if your machine is capable, as a silver bullet is, of allowing you to manually line up the registration marks with a laser pen, which is in the machine, then you can simply put your first registration mark, your second registration mark, your third registration mark, and it'll be just as if you printed it. So no problem whatsoever. So that's a way of doing it. If you want to do it just with a smaller design on a scrap piece of paper, for example, all you would do is put the bounding box drawing line around your design and then add a 0.64 centimetre offset. Give that shape your draw lines, and then the corners of that would be your registration mark. So there you go. You can draw your design, colour it in as you want, and cut it out later if you want to. But that's a way of doing it. And of course, if you do it on a small piece of paper that is maybe torn in half, or maybe you can't get it through your printer, you can still use that paper. You don't have a problem. You just put a pen in your holder to do the drawing, and then you colour it in as you want, and then you use your registration marks to do the cut on your machine later. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you found that useful, and I will see you again soon. Take care now.